do what I am going to tell you to do, or you're going to die. Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and welcome guests. I heard those words about 10 years ago, and it wasn't from some thug with a gun wanting my money. It was from my doctor, who told me that I had been diagnosed with sleep apnea. Sleep apnea, is a condition where, as Kimberly just talked about, it's difficult to breathe, and sometimes you're actually suffocating. Apnea, A-P-N-E-A, is Latin for no breath. And what happens is when you're sleeping at night, you go to sleep, and you sleep along, and then all of a sudden your esophageal airway, which is your windpipe, closes up or becomes blocked, and you're trying to inhale, and 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds goes by, and your brain says somebody's smothering you, and it shoots out a bunch of adrenaline, your fight or flight syndrome goes into play, and you kind of stir around, and then your airway opens up, and you can breathe. And you go back to sleep, you sleep a little while, maybe an hour, maybe just a few minutes, and it happens again. And your airway closes off, and you go through that same struggle. And it goes on night after night, day after day. And when you go through that kind of situation, with me, it was happening 200 times a night. Now you can imagine that you don't get very good sleep if somebody's waking you up every 3 or 4 minutes. I was tired all the time. All I wanted to do was take a nap. I would doze if I was watching television, if I was watching a play, or worst of all, I'd go out and eat a big lunch with the business and then have a meeting after lunch. All I could do to keep my eyes open in the meeting after lunch. If you fall asleep during a sermon at church, or heaven forbid you fall asleep while you're driving a car. So that is, the tiredness is really bad, but worse than that is the constant adrenaline pumping out in your body all night long. You're under constant stress, and that can set up a cascade of situations in your body where you can have a stroke, you can have a heart attack, and you can die. So when my doctor told me that, I didn't just blindly go along and say, never mind, I'm not going to pay attention. He told me I needed to get treatment. And there's several kinds of treatment. You can treat it with drugs, which I tried. They had a lot of side effects, which I did not like. You could try it with an oral appliance that holds your throat open. I tried that. There are reasons I didn't like that. And the third method, which I'm going to demonstrate, is the one I chose. Now, what happens in sleep apnea is that I said your airway closes up. Now, as you get older, you lose muscle tone. I used to be a big, strong guy, but I'm kind of saggy now. Your airway is made out of cartilage and muscles. When you go to sleep, you relax. All your muscles relax. And the muscles around that airway relax, and then when you try to breathe in, they can close up. Another reason that you might have it is if you are overweight. Because if you're overweight, you have fat that's built up around that airway, and that's pushing on it. It tends to make it close up too. And there are other reasons why your airway might close up. So what happens when you get treatment, like I did, is you have a machine that helps you breathe. And when Kimberly mentioned breathing, I thought, I know the struggle of not being able to breathe. It happens unconsciously at night, but I still go through that difficulty of not being able to breathe. The machine that I'm talking about is called a CPAP. And this is my CPAP. CPAP is an acronym. It stands for Continuous Positive Airway Pressure. So it provides pressure in your system to keep your esophageal airway inflated. This is my CPAP. It is modular so that you can take it apart, put it in a travel bag, take it on a plane with you. And the airports are used to that. There's so many of them these days, sometimes they don't even ask you to take it out of the bag. The first part of the module has the brains in it. It has a motor. It has a fan, a little blower that provides the air that we're talking about. It's got a little filter here in the back. Filters out the dust. You don't want dust blowing in your nose, or you don't want you have these little spiders that make the webs up in the corner. What if one of those crawl up in this thing? So it has a filter for good reason. It has a SD card in there that records how much you use it all the time. And your doctor can look at that and see how well it's being, your condition's being treated. And this plugs into the other module, which has a little reservoir. You fill this up every night, and you put it in here. There's a heating element in it. You can dial in and how warm you want it to be, and it gives moist, warm air coming through the tube to your face mask. And this is the face mask. You put this on with the elastic straps, and this is what I look like when I'm sleeping. So vanity is your thing, and you care what other people think about the way you look, you're not going to be happy with this. But I'd rather have this than to have a heart attack or a stroke. So you turn it on, it blows the air through here, it keeps your airway inflated, and you might ask, well, what happens if you want to breathe out? Well, there's a little valve here where the excess air comes out. It's blowing more air than you need. The excess air comes out, and so when you breathe in and you breathe out, that excess air goes out of here. So it works. It keeps your airway inflated. It took me about 6 months to get used to wearing this thing, because when you, I want to show you this. This is another kind of mask that covers your mouth and your nose. One of the problems with the mask I have, it only covers my nose, and if I open my mouth, the air comes out of my mouth. So you have to learn to teach yourself while you're sleeping to keep your mouth shut. And sometimes that's not a bad rule during the daytime. But the CPAP, it took me 6 months, as I say, to get used to it. It's a machine that actually has saved my life. I haven't touched that.